Okay, let's we'll come back here to the super chats after we finish our first topic. Evan, we have a Discord question that would lead us into it because you mentioned that.
Which we're going right into Last of Us.
Yeah, we can go in Last of Us. That's fine.
All right. That would be for those who played it. What was your weakest part of the game, like element of the game itself?
Well, I know Max beat it. I'm still working through it.
Oh, I mean, but you've experienced.
Jordan's very familiar with it.
But you've experienced. I mean, even just playing through it to the point you're at, you probably can rate where you're currently at the thing.
The weakest point where I am now.
Yeah.
I guess if I had to pick something out of it right now, because the story's like not even close to being complete for me, I would say probably the shooting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's freaking controller, and there's no aim assist.
It's kind of all over the place with that.
It's stuff you upgrade throughout the game. You have like a skill tree in the game that you can upgrade to get better.
You can upgrade weapon swings.
I just mean because the shooting feels really clunky.
You think so? I think the easiest mode, like the easiest mode, has aim assist. The other, none of the other.
Yeah, you can turn. Yeah, well, specifically in the options, you can turn on specific stuff, and in accessibility, you could turn on an auto lock system where you basically just select targets and press shoot.
Then I guess the other weakest point would probably be the stealth stuff's kind of hit or miss for me. I don't know if anyone's noticed that too. Like when I'll have the bow, I hit someone from across pretty far away. I'm like prone in the grass. Somebody sees it and then immediately points to where I am, despite me being prone and hidden in the grass, and everyone just converges on me.
It's been like that since the first game, though. They automatically know where you are.
But I was hoping I was hoping it would have upgraded from 2013 to like 2020. Was my hope. But those right now, because all I can really do is just on gameplay. I mean, I know for the most part know some of the stuff happening in the story, but like for what's around me right now, I guess those are the two because the melee combat feels amazing. Like when you have like an axe or something that connects with it really feels impactful when you hit them with like an axe or 2x4 or something. So
like I saw Jim Duggan.
I think she did something where I hit someone with the iron rod and it broke. But they were holding a bat, so when she took them down, she took the bat from him as he was falling, and I was like, "Oh, that's a really cool exchange."
Yeah, you can trigger that if you do a dodge. If you dodge as somebody's swinging and they're actually off balance, if you press melee, you snatch their melee weapon and kill them.
Maybe that's
that's
I don't
what happened
know.
with there was a cool interaction where a huge machete was coming at me, and I was like beating the person up, and like right before I was gonna knock him out, I grabbed the machete, twisted it back right through their neck, and then I just took it and kept it, and I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. I got machete now. I
honestly think the dodge mechanic made the combat so much better for me. Like, honestly, like, I think that changed a lot because I didn't like the melee at all. And I really like melee combat, but like having the dodge and then being able to retaliate right away, or like you have two of them facing you, you can dodge both of their attacks, even if you're like focusing on one. Like, that's just so cool.
What's everyone think of the game so far, though?
I'm 12 hours in, 12 or 13 hours in, I believe.
So you're almost halfway done the game, then, I'd say.
Yeah. Last of Us, like I said, and with Last of Us 1, I never gave a shit about the story. I thought the story was overrated. I didn't care about it. So a lot of the story elements are falling flat on me as far as an emotional thing. Like, I don't really care. I think it's been kind of interesting. I do think it's interesting how a lot of things that were said about this game in the leaks aren't necessarily like true or heavily embellished, we'll say. It's not a bad game. I run into some AI issues where this situation always sticks out to me. So there's a hallway. I'm in a hotel. There's a hallway that goes in the middle. Dina's here. I'm here. There's two separate rooms. And Dina is here shooting at a clicker who's in this hallway coming this way. I'm hiding behind a wall. So my train of thought is, okay, this is going to play out this way. The clicker is going to come up on Dina. I'm going to get behind the clicker and take it out with my melee weapon. No. The clicker goes towards Dina, then comes around the corner and finds me and goes directly towards me.
And Dina just watches. She just watches, dude.
And I was like, what was happening here? Why did this happen? There's been situations where like Dina was lying prone in the grass and a character walked on top of her but didn't spot her, and I'm like, what the hell? But it's not a 10. No way in hell is it a 10.
I don't feel it's a 10 either, but like I said, I'm still working through it. So
that's just the AI. I feel for everyone is something different. Like for me, my AI experience has been nothing but like very impressive, and in terms of whether it's been the enemies or if it's been a partner like Dina, because there's times where I'm fighting and I look over and she's helping take down someone as well.
There are times where she's like a crack shot sometimes.
Like she is like I have had nothing but helpful experiences with them, and barely any times where like they just keep getting caught and I have to go save them. But for the most part, they've been good, and I think the AI, in terms of the communication patterns they have, adding the dogs into the game that they can smell your scent of where you went, even to the other cult factions with like whistle communication. There's a lot of really cool stuff in this game that I think that is far more interesting. And I think the technical aspect of this game, the mechanics, the details, and all the stuff you can do in fighting, the cool things you can pull off in the fighting. I've had great experiences so far with the stealth and everything like that. So I think that is a solid part of the game. But my problem is, after finishing the game and I'm going through it again, it is the story, how the story is presented, how it's written, and how it doesn't. It feels like there's a giant disconnect from 1 and 2 in terms of character motivations, in terms of plot, in terms of stuff that we haven't seen that they try to show later. There's a lot in this game that just falls through with plot holes that doesn't make sense to get to an end point that is not satisfying. And my problem is, well, yes, the gameplay can be fun and really cool and like intense at some points. Does that justify 25 hours of what I deem not a good story? It's not written well. It's not because I didn't want this to happen. I don't care if a game does something I don't want it to do. It's the fact that it's just not written well. And it's not paced well, and it's not
a lot of convenience in the game.
A lot of convenience. Every 5 seconds, someone gets hit on the head, and it cuts to black, and you wake up somewhere new.
Wait, don't go too far. I'm not.
I'm just saying, it's a trope that happens way too much, and I'd rather something be more fleshed out in terms of the story. It feels like this is a very rough first draft of someone who had a lot of ideas and didn't know which order.
They cut some corners.
There's a lot of corners cut.
A little, you know what? You know what I noticed though when playing the game? I almost feel like the main core of the game was supposed to be like almost like a third game, and like
yes, exactly, that's the problem.
The stuff that happens within the game where you go back and fill out the stuff.
No.
It's not a spoiler.
They're flashbacks. They're flashbacks. Yeah, that are very great.
I literally just got to my first one, so I would have been pissed if you had said that literally before tonight.
Why?
Well, if
because
so,
I don't want
do you
to
not
know.
want reviews? Do you not want?
No.
Do you stay off the internet?
Yes,
There's flashbacks
John.
in the game, everyone. I'm sorry, but
they're good. They're the best part of the game.
It almost feels like the flashback is supposed to be the second game.
There's a giant disconnect. Cookout.
I felt that there was a way, if this was the story they wanted to tell with certain other characters, that's how you should have written it, with a shocking surprise ending to lead into a connection between 1 and 2, not try to continue what you had from 1 and then kind of put in another story at the same time that doesn't feel fully fleshed out. And it's the order of it, because compared to the first game, immediately you have a connection with Joel. They get in the first 10 minutes of that game, you have a reason to understand Joel's pain and who he is. This game tells stuff in reverse order to make certain things extremely unlikable, there's a point you just don't want to do anything, because it's like, I'm forced to do something that I don't want to do for the rest of the game. And that's the biggest problem.
So I want to give a specific example to people, and this isn't a spoiler, it's very much at the beginning of the game, but something that feels lazy and like very bad writing is towards the beginning of the game, you're trying to track down these people that like screwed up your village. You're trying to find this like tribe of people. You literally find a stack of photographs. You're in Chicago. It is a humongous city. You find a stack of photographs of everybody you're trying to find.
You mean Seattle?
Yeah, sorry, Seattle, yeah. So you're going to Seattle, and you have a stack of photographs and a map of the area, so you can try and track them down in the most video gamey way possible. It just feels like they were like, well, how can we visually display this in cutscenes? There's so much of that, like just needless contrivance.
It feels like
I like the game. I just want to say I do like the game. I love the combat. I love the AI. But more than anything, do I love that melee? It seemed like since they gave us more melee and more dodges, I definitely felt like they made the zombie AI a lot better. Like the zombies will surround you and try and grab you a lot more. Because in the first game, they kind of wait to attack you, it felt like. In this one, like I like
the crazy
ambushing you. Man.
Nobody's mentioning this, but I think I need to mention it, man. Like the controls feel a huge upgrade.
I know.
I love it. A huge upgrade over The Last of Us Part 1. Last of Us Part 1 feels blocky, kind of feels robotic compared to this one. Ellie and other people you use feel a lot more mobile, like you said, like with the dodging, but also just like how it feels, how you climb up stuff, just how they move just feels way less robotic, a lot more fluid. And there's a cool horse that you get, you know, at the beginning, which they did show. That's not a spoiler. So there's a cool horse, but I think that like the controls are probably the best thing. Controls combined with like the combat is probably the best thing that I liked about this game. I'm with Sean. I understand why people love the story, but I am not like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest story of after I play. I'm like, I'm just not. It's cool, and
it's the Bible.
Yeah, it's cool. Like it's a dope story. Like I get it. I can understand why people love it, but to me, it didn't grab me. Like I don't gotta not wear makeup so I don't cry. Like some people on here.
It seems like my enjoyment really lies in the fact of the stuff that the game doesn't tell you. Right? It's all the interesting world building that you have to go seek out for yourself. Like if you just spend when you're in Seattle and there's carte blanche to just do what you want. That is the best time, because if you just explore and learn and find out what happened to the world, it's so incredible. The cultists in the world, so much like to learn in there, and it's intense and it's interesting. But the game just it says, here's all this interesting stuff, but that doesn't matter. Focus on this.
I thought it was more interesting though. Well, that part is. I thought it was more interesting that if you explore, you get stuff like the pump action shotgun. Like you're rewarded by exploring. I love the rewards for exploring.
There's a lot of stuff you can find.
This Click had her hands up for a solid like 2 minutes, ready to.
Okay, go ahead. I was just joking with you, Click. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just gonna back up.
It's fine. I mean, listen. In my opinion, this is the way I look at it. Is you guys might not necessarily relate to the story, but that's fine. I'm sure there are plenty of people who do. Like, I can put myself in Ellie's shoes and being in that situation. I have to look at, am I going to have her mindset, or am I not going to go on the path of revenge? Again, I still haven't finished this game, so I was really upset about how I felt like they handled this and how it was such a big time skip, and how I felt like, again, I haven't been through multiple, if you're saying there are multiple flashbacks, I haven't been through all of it, but I'm just saying that the story, a lot of people might not like it, but way
you got to accept it.
Sean, I am going to freaking destroy you, dude. Like, I just think genuinely, and this is what I've been telling chat right now, because when that happened, I was full prepared for Civil War in chat, and they were actually pretty reasonable about talking about it in a civilized way. And the only way I could really explain it is, this is a written story, but this is a story that they want to tell. Right. But also this is effed up and doesn't make sense and could be ill-paced and timed, but it's kind of supposed, they talk about they want their games to be mundane and kind of glorify the realistic slow parts. And I get it. I haven't finished the game, so I don't fully know. I think the AI is still dumb. I haven't had a good experience with the AI. Chat could tell you, freaking Dino was getting me killed left and right because I go to run through a door and then all of a sudden she T-bones and blocks the doorway and I freaking die. It's just Dino, what the frick? And you can't go through her, so and that's happened multiple times. Or another time, she freaking is just running from a clicker the entire time, and I'm trying to catch the clicker and she's going everywhere, and I'm like, girl, you have a gun, just shoot. And you have unlimited ammo, just shoot.
My concern is I'm gonna finish this game, but I'm gonna feel like it was. The overall story was mostly a waste of time.
Yeah,
that's what I'm concerned about, because I'm worried I'm gonna get to the end and it's gonna feel like it was some of the events were manufactured for mostly controversy even outside the game.
It really comes down to how it resolves, or if it doesn't resolve, right? So that's why I haven't formed my full opinion. I get it, Jordan. I get it. I do. But I'm just saying,
think about it again.
I know, I'm sorry. A lot of people haven't got to finish this game yet, and they just need to form their opinions, versus a lot of people are I quit this game the first 5 hours in. I'm like, dude, just at this point, just get your money's worth out of it. That's the worst of it.
We'll come back together next weekend and talk about it, 'cause by then most of us
please. Yes.
And I do want to say, while you're right about like this is like they want to tell these mundane stories, and they have. The Last of Us 1 is not a feel good story. You're not happy by the end of it. It ends on a very dark note, and you're supposed to feel somber and confused about a lot of things. This game, there's just problems with the pacing and the writing of the characters and the writing of where the story goes from A to B. That's the main problem. While this is the story they wanted to tell, I can still criticize it that it's not. I'm not saying they shouldn't have told this story. I'm just saying that the story they told, in my opinion, was not a greatly written story.
No, I get that. I think you broke it apart and gave your reasons versus just being like, man, this game sucks. My name.
Yeah, I think there's people on both sides right now that are too aggressive.
Yeah.
Either it's either the best thing ever and anyone's just a hater, or it's the worst thing ever and you can't say anything good.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Form your own opinions on it, absolutely. No. But I personally I'm not the biggest fan of how the game ended up. And it is what it is, you know.
And maybe I agree with you.
If you like it, that's amazing. I hope you enjoy it. I don't want to get a bad game. I don't want people to have a bad experience with the game. But for me, I had a bad experience with how it made me feel.
Jordan, I was completely satisfied after The Last of Us Part 1. I was like, okay, cool.
Last of Us Part 1
I was completely satisfied. I was like, if they want to end it right here, I'm good.
Fine. Yeah, I was completely fine where it ended, if we never got a sequel, but ever since they've teased us with one.
To be honest, we didn't even really after Last of Us. We didn't even really need it.
That's the thing is it's definitely like I thought it was such a perfect artsy ending in the first game. The second game kind of has to justify its existence.
There you go. Yeah, they make shit happen just for it to happen, and then they do it in the worst possible way. Well, to make stuff happen.
I have a question. How long after the first Last of Us did they announce they were making a sequel? Because DLC was 2014, right?
Yeah,
2013 the game came out. They announced it in 16 or 17.
16 or 17, yeah.
That's when the first
it was the trailer with Ellie playing the guitar, right?
And and the firefly siren in the jungle, so we kind of had an idea that it was like a continuation.
As soon as the game dropped, though, and they hit 8 million sales in a few months, they're like, all right, second sequel's coming.
Right.
So they already knew that money. They made so much money off of The Last of Us.
Originally, the plan there was 3 Last of Us planned way back in the day before the Last of Us game came out. And internally, they had listings for a new big. The next big thing is what it was internally classified as in Naughty Dog, and they had the next big thing 1, 2, and 3. And then somewhere along the lines, after 1 did well, and then the early talks of HBO wanting to do a show with it, or if it was going to be a movie, then the idea of completely changing the story of just being Ellie and Joel's story to what we got in 2 to what the show is going to be on HBO. Really kind of set in motion the big change of what they're doing with the company. So if there is a 3, I wouldn't be surprised if there is even crazier dissonance from 2 and 1, especially the show, as far as I know, unless they revert back, has nothing to do with Joel and Ellie. It's not telling their story. It's going to be a brand new story in the post, do
you think they'll spin off a universe kind of thing?
It's just different it's like how The Walking Dead has Fear the Walking Dead and then another Walking Dead show, right? So that's where I think they want to go with it, and I never think if they wanted to make it 2, did they want to continue these characters, or they want to just give new characters, and they kind of just fused a lot of those ideas together.
I do want to throw this out here because I know we're about to move on. I definitely want to do a spoiler cast. I don't care what channel. When all of y'all beat it, we gotta talk. I don't care. We'll do it my channel, y'all's channel. Somebody. I want to talk with y'all about everything when we're done.
That'll work. We can do that. Cool. Sounds good. Yeah, well, let's talk a little more about it next week after most of us had finished it. Have more perspective on it. Maybe Nate will grab it this week. What do you think, Nate?
Have to see what Amazon does about it.
Okay. Oh my God.
Okay.
Are you outside? I hear crickets.
His window's
I have
probably
my
open.
windows open. That's
Okay,
crickets and fireworks. The world's very active around me right now.
Okay.